In 2008, a 2-year-old girl named Caylee Anthony disappeared. Her own mother waited 31 days before telling anyone. 31 days. And during those days, she was out partying, competing in a hot body contest, and getting a tattoo that said Bella Vita, which means beautiful life in Italian. When police finally found little Caylee, she had been dumped in a trash bag in the woods near their own home. She was just 2 years old. And her mother, she walked free. This is the case that broke America. Stay with me because what you are about to hear will leave you speechless. Let me take you back to the summer of 2008 in Orlando, Florida. Caylee Anthony was 2 years old, a bright, happy, curly-haired little girl who loved her grandmother and loved to dance. By all accounts, she was a normal, joyful child. Her mother, Caylee Anthony, was 22 years old, living at home with her parents, George and Cindy Anthony. On June 16, 2008, Caylee was last seen alive. That was the last day anyone outside the Anthony family ever saw her. Now here is where things get disturbing. For the next 31 days, that is an entire month, Caylee Anthony told her parents that Caylee was with a babysitter, a woman named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, or Zanny the nanny as Caylee called her. Caylee said Zanny had taken Caylee to the park, to the mall, to Universal Studios. Every story was different. Every story was a lie. It wasn't until July 15th, 31 days later, that Caylee's grandmother Cindy Anthony finally got the truth, or at least part of it, and what she found made her pick up the phone and call 911. Cindy told the 911 operator, "And I want you to remember these words," she said. "There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car and it smells like there's been a dead body in the car." To understand this case, you need to understand who Caylee Anthony really was. People who knew her described her as a compulsive liar, someone who had been lying for years without any guilt or remorse. She had told her parents she worked at Universal Studios. She didn't. She had told her friends she had a nanny for Caylee. There was no nanny. Now here is the part that made millions of people across America absolutely furious. During those 31 days that her daughter was missing, those 31 days she told everyone Caylee was safe. Caylee Anthony was living her best life. She went clubbing. She entered a hot body contest at a nightclub. She spent nights at her boyfriend's house. She went shopping. And then, on June 18th, just 2 days after Caylee was last seen, she walked into a tattoo parlor and got a tattoo on her left shoulder. That tattoo said, Bella Vita, beautiful life. While her 2-year-old daughter was gone, Caylee Anthony tattooed beautiful life on her body. That image alone became one of the most controversial pieces of evidence in the entire trial. When police arrived on July 15th, they found Caylee Anthony calm and collected. Too calm. She told police the same story. Zanny the nanny had taken Caylee. She even took detectives to Universal Studios claiming she worked there and that Zanny had last been seen nearby. When they arrived, she eventually admitted she didn't actually work there. She had made it all up. Meanwhile, investigators examined Caylee's car, a white Pontiac Sunfire. The smell coming from the trunk was described by multiple witnesses as the unmistakable smell of human decomposition. Tests confirmed the presence of human decomposition in the trunk lining. There were also traces of chloroform detected. Police launched a massive search for Caylee. Hundreds of volunteers joined in. Caylee continued to give interviews, smile for cameras, and change her story repeatedly. She showed no visible signs of distress. No tears, no desperation, just nothing. Then investigators looked at the family computer. What they found was chilling. In March 2008, 3 months before Caylee disappeared, someone had searched the following terms: how to make chloroform, neck breaking, how to make someone sleep, death. The prosecution would later argue these searches proved premeditation, that Caylee had planned this. On December 11, 2008, 6 months after Caylee was last seen, a utility worker named Roy Kronk was clearing brush near the Anthony home. Less than a quarter mile from where the family lived. He found a bag. Inside that bag were the skeletal remains of a small child. Caylee Marie Anthony had been found. She was identified through her hair and DNA. She was 2 years old. The trial of Caylee Anthony began on May 24, 2011, and it became one of the most watched trials in American television history. People called it the trial of the century. Millions tuned in every single day. The prosecution painted a clear picture. Caylee Anthony had used chloroform to knock out her daughter, then suffocated her with duct tape and disposed of her body in the woods like garbage. The evidence against Caylee was powerful. The decomposition smell in her car, the chloroform searches, The 31-day delay, the lies, the tattoo, and witnesses who testified Casey had shown no concern for her missing child. But then, in a moment that stunned the entire courtroom, Casey's defense attorney Jose Baez stood up and made an explosive claim. He said Caylee had not been murdered. He said Caylee had accidentally drowned in the family's swimming pool on June 16th, and that Casey's father, George Anthony, had found the body and helped cover it up. The defense accused George of sexual abuse and claimed the whole family had a history of covering up secrets. The courtroom was in shock. George Anthony took the stand and denied everything. He wept, he called it outrageous, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Then came the moment that many believed changed everything. Cindy Anthony, Casey's own mother, took the stand and testified that she had been the one who made those chloroform searches on the computer. She said she was researching plants that could harm her dog. Investigators later proved this was impossible. Cindy was at work during the time those searches were made. Many believed she was lying to save her daughter. The truth was getting buried in more and more lies. On July 5, 2011, after just 10 hours and 40 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Not guilty of first-degree murder, not guilty of aggravated child abuse, not guilty of aggravated manslaughter. America erupted. Outside the courthouse, crowds screamed in outrage. Social media exploded with fury. Legal analysts were stunned. News anchors visibly struggled to process the verdict. Caylee Anthony cried in court, the first real tears many had seen from her throughout the entire trial. She was convicted only of lying to police, 4 counts. And because of time served, she was released just 13 days after the verdict, on July 17, 2011. She walked out of that jail a free woman into a world that despised her. To this day, no one has ever been charged with Caylee Anthony's death. The case remains officially unsolved, and Caylee, that little girl who loved to dance, never got justice. Somewhere out there tonight, Caylee Anthony is living her life. She has given interviews, started businesses, and continued to maintain her innocence. She has never publicly mourned her daughter in any way that felt real to most people. And little Caylee, she was 2 years old. She trusted the one person in the world who was supposed to protect her above everything else. And that person let her down in the most unimaginable way. The American justice system says you are innocent until proven guilty. The jury did their job by the law. But in the court of conscience, in the hearts of millions of people, a very different verdict was delivered that day. So I leave you with one question: did justice fail Caylee Anthony? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please share it so that Caylee's name is never forgotten. Thank you for watching.